sister sabotaged my engagement, so I exposed her shocking secret to everyone. Have you ever felt that the person who should be cheering the loudest for your happiness is actually the one trying to tear it down? That's the question that haunted me for years before I finally saw the truth about my sister, Jessica. I always believed that blood was thicker than water. Despite our occasional sisterly spats growing up, I thought Jessica would always have my back when it truly mattered. That's what sisters were supposed to do, right? Support each other through life's biggest moments? I couldn't have been more wrong. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The competition between us started innocently enough in childhood. Who got better grades? Who was mom's favorite helper? Who dad praised more for their achievements? But while I saw it as normal sibling rivalry, something darker was brewing inside Jessica. The first real red flag appeared during my high school graduation. I had worked incredibly hard to become valedictorian, staying up late studying while maintaining my extracurricular activities. The night before my big speech, Jessica accidentally spilled coffee all over my carefully prepared notes. I had to rewrite everything from memory at 2 a.m., running on adrenaline and tears. It was just an accident, Jessica had insisted, her apology seeming genuine enough that our parents quickly dismissed it. I wanted to believe her too, so I pushed down the nagging feeling that it wasn't really an accident at all. College brought some distance between us, which I found refreshing. I thrived in my new environment, making friends who appreciated me for who I was, not competing with me at every turn. Meanwhile, Jessica struggled academically and socially, often calling me in tears about how unfair everything was. Despite our history, my heart went out to my sister. I would spend hours on the phone coaching Jessica through assignments, even editing her papers over breaks. I wanted my sister to succeed, too. That's what family did. They lifted each other up. During our final year of college, I met Michael. He was everything I had ever dreamed of. Kind, thoughtful, ambitious, but not at the expense of others. For the first time, I experienced what it felt like to be someone's priority, to be loved unconditionally without having to constantly prove my worth. When Jessica first met Michael during a family dinner, I noticed something shift in my sister's demeanor. Jessica became uncharacteristically charming, laughing a little too loudly at Michael's jokes, finding excuses to touch his arm during conversation. I tried to brush it off as Jessica simply trying to welcome him to the family. "He's great, Rosie. You really lucked out," Jessica had said later that night, her eyes lingering on Michael a beat too long. "I hope I find someone half as good someday." After graduation, Michael and I moved to the same city where Jessica had settled. I had landed my dream job at a prestigious marketing firm, while Michael began his career in architecture. We invited Jessica over frequently, not wanting her to feel alone in the big city. I even helped Jessica land a job at a smaller marketing agency through one of my new connections. But the more success I found, the more Jessica's behavior became erratic. She'd cancel plans last minute, make passive-aggressive comments about my apartment, clothes, or career achievements. When I was promoted after just 8 months, Jessica didn't even congratulate me. "Some people just have all the luck," Jessica had muttered when our mother brought up my promotion during a family video call. Or the right connections. 2 years into our relationship, Michael proposed to me during a surprise weekend getaway. It was perfect, intimate and thoughtful, just like him. When we returned, bubbling with excitement to share our news, my parents threw an impromptu celebration dinner. Jessica appeared genuinely happy for us, hugging me tightly and admiring my ring with appropriate enthusiasm. "I'm so happy for you, sis. You deserve all the happiness in the world," Jessica had said, raising her glass in a toast. The sincerity in her voice had brought tears to my eyes. Maybe we were finally moving past our childhood rivalry, I thought hopefully. Maybe Jessica had matured. That hope lasted exactly 3 weeks. It started with small things. Jessica was questioning our wedding date choices, Isn't that hurricane season? Suggesting the engagement ring stone wasn't quite the quality Michael probably thought it was, and wondering aloud if we weren't rushing things a bit. Each comment was delivered with a smile, and the prefix, "I'm just looking out for you." I tried to involve Jessica in the wedding planning, asking her to be the maid of honor. Jessica had teared up, saying it was all she'd ever wanted. For a brief moment, I felt we were reconnecting, becoming the sisters I'd always hoped we could be. Then came the engagement party. Michael and I had decided on a laid-back garden party at his parents' beautiful home. Nothing overly fancy, just close friends and family celebrating our love. I had spent weeks coordinating with Michael's mother to make sure everything was perfect. The morning of the party, Jessica called me in tears. She'd had a fight with her boyfriend of 3 months and needed her sister. I, always the supportive one, invited Jessica to come over early so we could talk before the guests arrived. Jessica arrived looking surprisingly put together for someone supposedly heartbroken. "Are you sure you still want to have the party?" Jessica had asked, eyes wide with concern. "I don't want to bring down the mood with my drama." "Of course," I assured her. "This will be good for you, being surrounded by love and positivity." As guests began arriving, I noticed Jessica spending a lot of time chatting with Michael's college friends, particularly his best friend, Tyler. I thought nothing of it. Jessica had always been sociable, and I was happy to see my sister seemingly enjoying herself despite her recent breakup. The party was in full swing when I overheard 2 of Michael's cousins whispering, their eyes darting toward Jessica, who was deep in conversation with Michael's mother. I caught fragments. "Can't believe she'd say that, and poor Rosie doesn't even know." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I approached the cousins, who immediately fell silent, with uncomfortable expressions on their faces. "What's going on?" I had asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The cousins exchanged glances before one finally spoke. "We don't want to cause drama, but your sister has been telling people some concerning things about your relationship with Michael." And just like that, my perfect day began to unravel. I was about to find out exactly how far my sister would go to sabotage my happiness, and why the past would no longer stay buried. I pulled the cousins away from the crowd, my heart hammering in my chest. "What exactly has Jessica been saying?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm even as panic rose inside me. "She's been telling people that Michael has commitment issues," one cousin reluctantly explained. "That he cheated on you last year and you forgave him, but she's worried he'll do it again after you're married." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Michael had never cheated. Our relationship had always been built on trust and honesty. This was a complete fabrication. "There's more," the other cousin added hesitantly. "She mentioned something about him having gambling problems that you're keeping secret from the family." Another lie. Michael was actually incredibly responsible with money. We'd been saving together for our future home, making careful financial plans that Jessica was well aware of because I'd excitedly shared them with her. I thanked the cousins and promised to handle it, then scanned the party for Jessica. I spotted her in an animated conversation with Michael's mother, whose face showed growing concern. Before I could intervene, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Michael. "Rosie, can we talk?" he asked, his expression unusually serious. "Privately." We stepped into his parents' study, closing the door behind us. Michael ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd come to recognize. "Your sister just told my mom that you've been having second thoughts about the wedding," he said, his voice strained. "She said you confided in her that you feel rushed and that you're not sure if you're ready to commit." I stared at him in disbelief. "That's absolutely not true. I've never said anything remotely like that." Relief washed over his face, but confusion quickly replaced it. "Why would Jessica say that?" "She's been telling other people you're a cheater with a gambling problem," I said flatly. Michael's eyes widened. "What?" Why would she? I don't know, I interrupted, but I'm going to find out. I marched back to the party, searching for Jessica. She was now chatting with Tyler by the drinks table, laughing as if she hadn't just tried to destroy my relationship. When she saw me approaching, her smile faltered momentarily before returning full force. Rosie, I was just telling Tyler about that camping trip we took when we were kids, she said cheerfully. Remember when you fell into the lake? We need to talk, I said firmly. Now. Jessica excused herself from Tyler and followed me to a quiet corner of the garden. What's wrong? She asked, her face a mask of innocence. I know what you've been saying about Michael, I said, keeping my voice low but intense. And about me. Why are you spreading these lies? Jessica's expression shifted from surprise to indignation. I'm just concerned about you, Rosie. As your sister, it's my job to make sure you're not making a mistake. By making up stories about Michael cheating and gambling? By telling his mother I have doubts? I could feel my hands shaking with anger. These aren't concerns, Jessica. They're lies. I'm just trying to protect you, she insisted, her eyes welling with tears. You've always rushed into things without thinking them through. Remember that semester abroad you almost signed up for without researching the program? Or that apartment you nearly rented before I pointed out the mold issues? This isn't about some study abroad program or an apartment, I countered. This is about the man I love and our future together. A future you're trying to sabotage. Jessica's tears spilled over. That's not fair. I love you, Rosie. I just don't want to see you get hurt. For a moment, I almost believed her. Jessica had always been good at turning situations around, making herself the victim. But this time, I saw through it. If you loved me, you wouldn't be trying to ruin the happiest day of my life, I said quietly. I want you to leave. You're choosing him over your own sister? She sounded genuinely shocked. I'm choosing the truth and respect. Two things you clearly don't value. Jessica's demeanor changed instantly. The tears dried up, replaced by a cold, hard stare. Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize I was right all along. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the party. I stood there shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Michael found me moments later, wrapping his arms around me as I told him everything. We should talk to the guests, he suggested gently. Clear things up. I nodded, and together we made the rounds, discreetly explaining that there had been some misunderstandings and reassuring everyone that we were solid and excited about our future. Most people were understanding, some even admitting they had found Jessica's comments odd, given how happy Michael and I clearly were. The party continued, but the joy had been tainted. That night, after everyone had left, I sat on Michael's parents' porch swing, emotionally exhausted. I'm so sorry about Jessica, I said, leaning against Michael's shoulder. You have nothing to apologize for, he assured me. You're not responsible for her actions. But she's my sister, I whispered. I always thought that no matter what, she'd be happy for me when it really counted. Michael was silent for a moment before speaking. Sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. I thought about all the times Jessica had accidentally sabotaged my moments of happiness or success. The spilled coffee on my graduation speech, the sudden emergencies that demanded attention when I had important presentations or dates, the backhanded compliments that left me feeling insecure rather than proud. The pattern was so clear now, but I'd been blind to it, making excuses for her behavior because she was my sister and I loved her. But love shouldn't be this painful or complicated. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. I was only trying to help. You'll see that someday. I forgive you for overreacting. No apology. No acknowledgement of the hurt she'd caused. Just another attempt to twist the narrative and make herself the generous one who was forgiving me. I showed Michael the message, and he squeezed my hand. What are you going to do? I stared at the text for a long moment before responding. I need some time and space. Please don't contact me for a while. Then I blocked her number. That's a start, I whispered, more to myself than to Michael. But I have a feeling this isn't over. 3 weeks passed without a word from Jessica. I'd like to say I felt liberated, but the truth was more complicated. There was relief, yes, but also a persistent sadness that hung over me like a cloud. 30 years of sisterhood doesn't just vanish overnight, even when betrayal cuts as deep as this. Michael and I threw ourselves into wedding planning, trying to recapture the joy that Jessica had stolen from our engagement party. We chose a venue, sampled cakes, and sent out save the dates. I asked my college roommate Lily to be my maid of honor, and she accepted with genuine enthusiasm that made me realize what supportive love actually looks like. My parents were caught in the middle, naturally. Mom called almost daily, her voice strained as she tried to navigate the rift between her daughters. Jessica's really hurting Rosie, she said during one call. She misses you. I'm hurting too, Mom, I replied. She tried to sabotage my engagement. She says it was all a misunderstanding, Mom countered, that people took her concerns out of context. I sighed, exhausted by the familiar pattern. Jessica creates chaos, then rewrites history to make herself the victim. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She deliberately lied about Michael and me to multiple people at our party. She's your sister, Mom said, as if that single fact should override everything else. Family forgives. I'll consider talking to her after she gives me a genuine apology, I conceded, knowing it would never come. The following Saturday, I met Lily for coffee and wedding planning. As we flipped through bridal magazines, my phone buzzed with a text from Tyler, Michael's best friend. Hey Rosie, can we talk? It's important. Tyler wasn't the type for cryptic messages, so I stepped outside to call him. What's up? I asked, trying to hide my concern. I've been debating whether to tell you this, he began, his voice hesitant. But you deserve to know. Jessica's been texting me. A lot. My stomach dropped. What kind of texts? At first it seemed friendly. She said she was worried about you and wanted my perspective on how you were doing. But then she started asking to meet up. Last night she invited me over to her place for drinks. Did you go? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Tyler was fiercely loyal to Michael. No, of course not. But Rosie, she sent some photos afterward that were pretty inappropriate. She said she's always had feelings for me and thinks I feel the same way. I closed my eyes, processing this new betrayal. I'm so sorry, Tyler. Don't apologize. I just thought you should know what she's doing. It feels like she's trying to create problems between me and Michael, or maybe get information about you guys. After thanking Tyler, I returned to Lily in a daze. I showed her the conversation, and her eyes widened. Your sister has serious issues, Rosie, she said bluntly. This goes beyond normal sibling rivalry. That night, I told Michael about Jessica's texts to Tyler. He was angry, but not surprised. First, she tries to convince my family I'm untrustworthy. Then she goes after my best friend. This is getting out of hand. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of notifications. Jessica had tagged me in several social media posts, old photos of us as children with captions about missing her best friend and sister, and how family should always come first. The comments were filled with people sending heart emojis and encouraging her not to give up on our relationship. The public display of faux sisterly affection was the final straw. If Jessica wanted to play this game publicly, then she'd better be prepared for the consequences. I drove to her apartment without calling first. She answered the door in pajamas, her surprised expression quickly morphing into a smile. Rosie, I knew you'd come around. I've missed you so much. I pushed past her into the apartment. Stop. Just stop the act, Jessica. I know about the texts you sent Tyler. Her smile faltered. What? I don't know what you're talking about. He showed me everything. The inappropriate photos, the confessions of feelings. Were you trying to break up my fiancé and his best friend? Or were you hoping to get information to use against us? Tyler's obviously making this up, she insisted, her voice rising defensively. He's probably trying to cause problems between us because he knows I don't approve of your rush to marriage. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots Tyler had sent me. These are your texts, Jessica. Your photos. Your words. Color drained from her face, replaced quickly by anger. So what if I texted him? He's single. I'm single. Are you the dating police now? This isn't about dating. It's about you systematically trying to undermine my relationship and happiness. First the lies at our engagement party, now going after Michael's best friend. When does it end? You're being dramatic, she scoffed. Not everything is about you, Rosie. Something inside me snapped. Years of making excuses for Jessica, of absorbing her subtle cruelties and manipulations, came crashing down around me. You know what? You're right. Not everything is about me. But this pattern of behavior is about you and your issues. I took a deep breath. Remember in high school when Jason broke up with you the week before prom? You told everyone it was because his parents didn't approve of his girlfriend working at the mall. But that wasn't true, was it? Jessica's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I ran into Jason last year at our high school reunion. He told me the real reason he broke up with you was because he caught you going through his phone and deleting messages from female classmates. He said you even created fake social media accounts to monitor him. Jessica's face flushed. He's lying. I can't believe you'd take his word over mine. Then what about your college roommate who suddenly moved out mid-semester? You said she got a better housing offer, but she told mutual friends you read her diary and used her personal information to manipulate her. Those are ancient history, Jessica spluttered, and completely irrelevant to what's happening now. They're part of a pattern that's gone on our entire lives, I countered. You sabotage relationships, you manipulate people, you create drama, and then play the victim when you're called out. I've made excuses for you for years because you're my sister and I love you, but I can't do it anymore. Jessica's expression hardened. So this is it? You're choosing Michael and his friends over your own flesh and blood? I'm choosing honesty, respect, healthy relationships. All things you seem incapable of understanding or providing. Get out, she hissed, pointing to the door. If that's how you feel about me, just get out. I headed for the door, then paused. I know about Tom, by the way. Jessica froze. What? Mom's colleague Tom, the married man you've been seeing for the last 6 months. The real reason your boyfriend broke up with you before our engagement party. Her face went white. How did you... I saw you with him last month at that restaurant across town. I wasn't going to say anything because it wasn't my business. But if you continue trying to destroy my relationship and my wedding, everyone will know about yours. Is that what you want? Jessica's stunned silence told me everything I needed to know. I'd finally found her weakness. The fear of being exposed as the very thing she accused others of being. Stay away from Michael, stay away from our friends, and stay away from our wedding, I said quietly. Or your secret won't be a secret anymore. I walked out without looking back, my hands shaking but my resolve stronger than ever. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to Jessica without backing down, without accepting her version of reality. It didn't feel good. It felt necessary. Driving home from Jessica's apartment, I felt hollow rather than triumphant. I'd finally stood up to my sister, but the victory tasted bitter. This wasn't how siblings were supposed to end up, using each other's secrets as weapons, drawing lines in the sand that felt impossible to cross. When I got home, Michael took one look at my face and wrapped me in his arms without saying a word. We stood there in our kitchen, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, illuminating dust particles that danced in the light. I confronted her, I finally said, my voice muffled against his shoulder. And I threatened to expose her affair if she didn't leave us alone. Michael pulled back slightly, surprise evident in his eyes. That doesn't sound like you. It doesn't feel like me either, I admitted. But I didn't know what else to do. She wasn't hearing me, wasn't respecting any boundaries. It was the only leverage I had. Do you think it worked? I shrugged. I guess we'll find out. For the next week, there was radio silence from Jessica. No texts, no calls, no social media posts. My parents mentioned that she'd suddenly decided to take a vacation, telling them she needed some time to recenter. The quiet should have been a relief, but something about it felt ominous, like the stillness before a storm. Jessica had never been one to retreat silently when challenged. Her typical pattern was to escalate, to find new ways to regain control of the narrative. I threw myself into wedding preparations, trying to recapture the joy that had been repeatedly stolen from what should have been the happiest time of my life. Lily and my bridesmaids were amazing, surrounding me with positivity and genuine excitement. 2 weeks after our confrontation, I received a text from an unknown number. Your sister destroyed my family. I thought you should know. Attached was a screenshot of messages between Jessica and Tom's wife, Rachel. My hands shook as I read through their exchange. Rachel had discovered the affair and confronted Jessica directly. Jessica's response made my blood run cold. Rosie found out about us and is threatening to tell everyone if I don't stay away from her and her perfect fiancé. Talk to your husband. This is his fault for not being more careful. Don't contact me again. Jessica had thrown me under the bus, making it seem like I was blackmailing her instead of simply trying to protect my relationship. And worse, she'd mentioned me by name to this woman whose marriage was imploding. Before I could even process this, my phone rang. It was my mother. Rosie, she said, her voice tight with anger. What did you say to your sister? What do you mean? Jessica just called in tears. Apparently, you've been spreading horrible rumors about her personal life. She said you threatened her? Of course. Jessica had gotten ahead of the story, painting herself as the victim yet again. Mom, that's not what happened. I don't want to hear it, she interrupted. This feud between you two has gone far enough. Your father and I raised you both better than this. I expect you to apologize to your sister and make things right before the wedding. Mom, please. But she had already hung up. I sat down heavily on the couch, the phone still clutched in my hand. Jessica had successfully turned the tables, making me the villain in her story. Now our parents believed I was spreading malicious rumors, when in reality, I'd only used the truth as a shield against her attacks. Michael found me still sitting there an hour later, staring at the wall. Jessica got to my parents first, I explained after showing him the texts. And apparently, Tom's wife is now blaming me for exposing the affair. Everyone thinks I'm the one who's been spreading rumors and making threats. Michael sat beside me, his expression grave. So, what do you want to do? I considered the question carefully. I'm done playing this game. Jessica can say whatever she wants to whoever she wants. I know the truth, and that's what matters. What about your parents? They'll either believe me or they won't. I can't control that. I took a deep breath. But I do need to talk to Tom's wife. She deserves to know she's being manipulated too. I reached out to Rachel, explaining my side of the story without excuses or embellishments. To my surprise, She believed me. Tom finally admitted everything. She wrote back. Jessica has been playing us all. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. That small validation gave me the strength to call a family meeting. My parents reluctantly agreed to hear me out, though they insisted Jessica should be present too. She won't come if I'm there, I told them. And that's fine. I just need you to listen to me, just once, without interrupting. We met at their house the following Sunday. I brought printouts of texts, screenshots, even statements from friends who had witnessed Jessica's behavior at the engagement party. I laid out the pattern of sabotage, the lies, the manipulation, all of it. I'm not asking you to choose between us, I concluded. I'm just asking you to see the truth. Jessica needs help, not enablers. And I need parents who don't automatically assume I'm lying when there's a conflict between us. My father, always the quieter of my parents, spoke first. We didn't want to see it, he admitted. It was easier to believe you two were just having normal sister squabbles. We failed you both, my mother added, tears streaming down her face. Jessica by not recognizing her behavior for what it was, and you by not believing you when you tried to tell us. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. My parents promised to talk to Jessica about getting professional help, though I doubted she would listen. As for our wedding, we decided to scale back our plans, opting for a destination ceremony with just our closest friends and family. Jessica wasn't invited, a decision that caused another round of drama, but one I stood firm on. On our wedding day, standing on a beach with the waves crashing behind us and Michael's eyes locked on mine, I finally felt the pure joy that had been so elusive during our engagement. The people surrounding us were there because they truly celebrated our love, not out of obligation or ulterior motives. My parents attended, still uncomfortable with the rift between their daughters but respectful of my boundaries. They didn't mention Jessica's name all day, a small mercy I appreciated more than they knew. 6 months later, I received a letter, an actual paper letter from Jessica. No return address, postmarked from a city 3 states away. My hands trembled as I opened it, unsure what new manipulation might be inside. Rosie, it began. I'm writing because my therapist thinks it's important for my recovery to acknowledge the harm I've caused. I read the letter twice, searching for the usual deflections and blame shifting, but finding none. Instead, there was something that looked remarkably like accountability. Jessica wrote about her jealousy, her insecurity, how she'd convinced herself that my happiness somehow diminished her own. I don't expect forgiveness, she concluded. I haven't earned it. But I wanted you to know that I'm finally facing the truth about myself, and I'm sorry for all the pain I caused you. I showed the letter to Michael, who read it with measured skepticism. Do you believe her? He asked. I don't know, I answered honestly. But for the first time, I think I want to. I never responded to Jessica's letter. Some bridges take more than words to rebuild. But I did stop carrying the weight of our broken relationship on my shoulders. Her actions weren't my responsibility. Her healing wasn't my project. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do with toxic family is to love them from a distance. A very, very long distance. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect your own happiness? And how do you know when it's time to open the door again? If ever. Because some people never truly change. The real question is, when will you stop waiting for them to? If you've ever had to make the difficult choice to distance yourself from toxic family, hit that like button right now. Have you dealt with a sibling who tried to sabotage your happiness? Share your story in the comments below. I read every comment, and your experiences might help someone else who's going through something similar. Some people never truly change. The real question is, when will you stop waiting for them to? Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss another true story. New videos every day. And for another shocking family betrayal story, click the video that's appearing on your screen now. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. See you in the next video.